I have a statement that I would like to make today. You can't make God be for something if he's always been against it. If God is against it, he will never be for it. I want you to think about it. If God has always been against the things that we've done in our life and the things that we're doing in our lives, we can't make God for the wrong things that we're doing in our lives. See, if God has never been for the decisions that we made in our life, why would he start being for it now if he's always been against it? I'll give you an example. Right now, somebody is wanting the Lord to be for their relationship that they're in. Somebody right now wants God to be for that toxic relationship that they're in. God says he's always been against it. So why all of a sudden would he be for it? I want you to think about it now. You got some woman, just like you got some man, dealing with the woman, dealing with the man, and they're with this individual. And not even to mention, before you went down the aisle to marry that person, you've always had signs that this person was no good. This person was cheating on you before you got married. They was having children on you before you got married. They was bringing you back STDs before you got married. They was putting their hands on you before you got married. And what did you decide to do? You still went ahead and got married. And now you want God to be for the marriage when God was always against you getting in the marriage. Now, is there anything wrong with getting married? It's absolutely nothing wrong with getting married. But the problem is when you decide to do things your way and think that, hey, you're going to marry who you want to marry, not who God tells you to marry. You want to do things your way instead of doing things God's way, and you want God just to work everything out your way. God never was for that man mistreating you. So why would God be for that man mistreating you now? I want you to think about it now. You got somebody right now, and God already knew it. Before you went and signed your name on the papers, God showed you every sign. You don't need to get that house. You don't need to get that house. It's too much money that you're going to be paying a month on that house, on top of trying to fix up that house. And now, ever since you signed your name on that paper, you've been struggling with trying to pay for that house. And once again, is it anything wrong with you getting a house, but you just want to get the right house? Now you're struggling with the house. See, we want God to be for these things when he always was against these things. See, somebody got a set of friends that God has never been for. God has always been against you hanging with a certain crowd of people because they meant you no good. You can't make God be for those no good friends when he always was against you hanging with those no good friends. We cannot make God be for something when he always was against something. Somebody was making a business decision, talking about going into business with an individual, and the Lord was already showing you that's not going to work out. That's not going to work out. You cannot make God be for something that he's always been against. You got somebody who say they're a believer of Jesus Christ. They trying to open up a strip club. They trying to open up a bar. They want to open up a liquor store. They want to open up all these things that don't represent Christ. They want to open up a sex store. The Lord is saying, if you're for me, you have to do things that's going to represent me. God was never for the business, and now you upset that he's against the business. You cannot make God for something that he always was against. God is not against us getting a vehicle. God is not against us taking trips. But the problem comes up when that stuff is going to put us in a bind. And God doesn't like something that's going to put us in a bind, and we're going to be struggling and struggling and struggling. Do you understand what I'm saying? God wants us to do things the right way and stop doing things the wrong way. And a lot of us still, we want to make God for our sinful life when God is saying, I've always been against your sinful life. God is saying right now to somebody, I've never been for you being in that same-sex relationship. God is against it, and he's always been against it. But see, we want to make God be for something because we want it. We want what we want, so now we want to make God okay with it. And God is like, I'm not okay with it. You cannot make God be for something that God has always been against. I want you to think about it now. What is it in your life that you're trying to make God okay with? You want God to be for it, but God said, I can't be for it, because God is saying, I am against it. Overlook your life on today. Seek God to do things God's way, because what we all have to realize this: God has a way, and it's the right way. We cannot step outside of God's will and start living our way and think that God is going to okay it. And then when our eyes close, we're going to go the right way. Some of us right now, we want to be a part of all these ungodly organizations. We want to go wherever we want to go, and we want to make God okay with this stuff. And if you just take time to seek the Lord will tell you for himself, I am against it. You got so many people out here living any kind of way, and they want to make things okay and say that God is okay with me living this way. They want to make God okay with it. God will never be okay with our sinful lives. God will never be okay with the bad decisions that we make. And just because you made those decisions, it doesn't mean that God is okay with those decisions. You got some woman right now, just because you're okay with having abortions, you can't make God okay with you having those abortions. That's a decision that you chose to make. And now you want to act like God is for it when God is saying, I've always been against it. We cannot make God be for wrong when he's always stood for right. We need to go to Christ, and we need to seek him. Remember, it's nothing wrong with you getting a house, with a car, with a business. It's nothing wrong with you getting a spouse. None of this is wrong with that. But we got to learn, y'all, to do stuff God's way and not our way. And a lot of us, we need to get out the way and let God have his way. If we just get out the way and let God have his way, everything will go the right way. Have you ever just thought about that? I just need to get out the way and let God have his way. Please remember on today, God has standards. God has standards. And just because you think it's all right to be nasty to somebody, just because you think it's all right to get back at people who's done something to you, you can't make it all right with God. We want to make God all right with this stuff that God has never been okay with. We need to truly learn the Lord to have a true relationship with the Lord. He has standards, just like you have standards. And if you don't have standards, that has nothing to do with the Lord's standards, because either way it go, he has standards, and you cannot live any kind of way and expect your soul to go the right way. So let's overlook our lives on the decision we make, on the things we do. Are we truly doing things God's way? And a lot of us, we want God to back us up, but God will never back us up and miss. We're called to give God our best, but God will never back us up and miss. God is not for the messy lives that we live. God is not for the bad decisions that we make. We can't keep making these bad decisions and thinking that God is going to ride with them and say, that's okay. God is not okay with them. If you truly think about your life, a lot of stuff that we do, and I'm guilty of it too, we make a whole lot of decisions and we put ourselves in a whole lot of situations that we chose to do that we didn't even have to go through. And right now, God is saying you could have saved yourself a whole lot of trouble if you would have just did things my way. Some of us would have saved ourselves a whole lot of heartache if we just would have left these people alone, if we would have stopped dealing with certain people, if we didn't decide to go certain places that the Lord told us we shouldn't be going. A whole lot of stuff wouldn't happen if we wouldn't went out, if we wouldn't left that house dressing that way and acting that way in a crowd of people that we decided to deal with. If we truly overlook our life, things will be a whole lot different if we made decisions that the Lord wanted us to make, not decisions that we wanted to make. So on today, let's seek the Lord, truly get to know the Lord, and we can always be living a life that's pleasing to the Lord. So always remember my closing: self-examination is the best examination, And Jesus Christ is Lord, and he's all we have. Have a great rest of the day.